Hi, and welcome back to iStudio. I'm Ed Birkin from H2 Gambling Capital, and I'm delighted to have three what have been described as outside thinkers here to join me today. The topic is, how long can iGaming keep pulling rabbits out of the hats? So amid a perfect storm of higher taxes, product restrictions, and marketing curbs, what does a future-proofed iGaming business actually look like? Whether it's deploying automation, improving attention, or doing something completely different, our panel of outside thinkers will have their say. So I'm joined by Henk Wolff from iGamingConsultant.eu, Sadi, CEO of LiveScore, and Alex Tomic, CEO of Alea. So perhaps if we go down, do you want to give a quick introduction to yourselves, and then we'll jump into giving this amazing outside thinking and tell everyone how they can future-proof their business.
Sure. So I'm Henk. What I do is I make online casinos grow. That's my tagline. So I help online casinos that are currently failing and to make them turn profitable again. So we help them with their acquisition, player retention, operations. We look at the contracts that they have with their providers and we try to optimize all the things. And within 6 to 8 months, we can get them actually back into the profits. And we do M&A as well. So we buy our casinos and we sell them a year after.
Okay, great. Sam?
So you're happy the conditions are getting tougher in the UK?
Oh, yeah.
Can't complain. Anyway, I'm Sam Sadi, CEO of LiveScore Group. We operate LiveScore, the global football app with over 50 million users. And we're also a gambling operator in UK, Ireland, Nigeria, and soon in South Africa with our brands LiveScore Bet and Version Bet.
So I'm Alex Tomic. I'm the founder, not the CEO of Alea. We got a CEO now for 2 or 3 years. And we're one of the main game aggregator on the market, especially on LATA.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, talking about fading casinos and not saying that anyone has one, but Sam, you can speak firsthand about how regulation in the Netherlands has impacted the business there. Is it just got to the point in some markets it's too tough to operate?
That's where you wanted to start. Okay. Well,
I've often said don't go easy.
Well, I think it's a good example, though. We're a relatively small operator. We thought Netherlands was making the right moves towards regulation. We saw it as an opportunity. We have a large and loyal user base on LiveScore. We had over 1 million users in the market. And we've never operated gray or black towards that territory. So we're a great candidate to go in and operate within, the set of rules that's the country had set. A year after those rules changed, tax rates increased with a promise to increase furthermore. So, you redo the math and you look at the math and the market becomes uninvestable. From our perspective, maybe if you have 20%, 30% market share, you can still continue to operate. But if you're less than 1% market share and you're looking to invest to grow, the growth equation doesn't work anymore. The unit economics, like the Americans call it, don't work anymore. So the sensible decision is, to shut down, take your capital, and move it to a more favorable environment. And unfortunately, before we did that, we tried to speak to the regulators and explain the math, the economics. And just like it happened in the UK, it's not a decision based on economical rationale. It's all ideology these days. And there's nothing you can fight against that. Like, they've set their minds that our industry has to be addressed in a particular way, and they're pursuing that strategy.
And I draw a lot of parallels to what happened in the Netherlands to what I think could happen in Brazil. Market regulates, huge amounts spent on marketing, suddenly in everyone's faces. You have a government that is quite anti-gambling in many respects, tax rises, potential marketing restrictions. Is LATAM turning from this amazing opportunity to, are we going to see the same thing there, do you think, Alex?
Yeah, we see it in Brazil. It was a paradise. Everything started fantastically. No numbers were growing. Operators were happy. Providers were happy. Then the regulation kicked in, and the numbers are going down. And it seems that this trend is going to continue. Unfortunately, I don't like to be that voice, but we've seen that in the past years when regulators kick in, sometimes they do kick in without the knowledge of our industry or without the knowledge of even what players want. And they go all in, and they go all in, and they go blind, right? Whether they do it at the beginning, like in Brazil, whether they do it after 10 or 15 years, like in UK, now a raise of taxes at 40%. Or look what's happening in US, 75% of the GGR is going on black operations. Or we have now a sweepstake ban going on, while at the same time we have the prediction market pushed by their beloved President Donald Trump and his family, all his clique. What's going to happen there? So basically we have the prediction market that exists per se as a B2C product that is becoming a B2B product because it's feeding sportsbook. DraftKings and FanDuel are taking prediction market feeds in order to power their sportsbook. In 3 months, it's going to be casinos. Casino games are going to be powered by prediction market B2B feed. All right, so this year is going to be very interesting to watch, whether it's in Brazil, whether it's in the US, whether it's in UK. As an aggregator, we see a lot of things. We see the data that's going through us, but we also know what's going up even we don't see the data. Let's take UK, for example. We have a lot of operators that are coming to us now and say we want to go do UK black. Sorry, we're not going there. But we have a lot of demands of operators that want to go UK with a Curacao license. And I mean, it's not you. They've been there before, but now it's like a tsunami of operators that want to go UK black. And also, we see what's happening in the US. And also, we see what's happening in Brazil, where a lot of operators want to go black. So, we already had a lot of operators going black since 2016 with the crypto casinos. We have a second wave of crypto casinos coming. And now we have all this reshaping between sweepstakes and prediction markets that are happening in the UK and operators that want to go crypto, for example, in UK and other countries. So it's a very interesting moment within the gaming industry that's happening right now.
And as Sam alluded to, you have tight restrictions in a market like the Netherlands. It's fine if you're a big operator. You know, the Netherlands has about 18 operators maybe or so.
31.
31. And so they've got these operators. But if you look at Brazil, it's like 170 grand. You know, not everyone, and the top two have 40% of the market. So not everyone's going to be able to get that. The UK, again, you know, hundreds of brands, casino sites, you know, you cannot compete. So, you know, if a small operator comes, I know you'll probably say you can turn any operator profitable, but, you know, are there just too many brands trying to compete in this market? Is that part of the issue?
Right. So I don't think that is the issue. I think what we do see in the Dutch market and what we're going to see in the UK market as well, and what you guys did very well with the analysis as well, was that you see when the tax rate grows above the 30% threshold, that's when you see a lot of black market activity, because you can no longer compete with your bonus offering or your promotions compared to the black market, unfortunately. And I think this is going to happen in the UK as well, with the doubling in the tax and next year in sports betting as well. So I think increasing the tax with above the threshold of 30%, that is when operators really get into the issues. So I think that is where the main issue is. And on the product side, we still see a lot of innovation. And I think that is good. Like we've seen the crash games, and they've really rose a lot. And it made a good influence in the new player acquisition. So I think if we keep innovating as a market, as an industry, we can constantly try and to get in the new players. However, with tax thresholds, that is going to be really hard for an operator to still be profitable and sustainable.
And we talk about innovation, but as Alex pointed out, there's, you know, sweepstakes, they will say they're innovative. Predictions markets will say they're innovative. I mean, quite frankly, prediction markets is what Betfair did 25 years ago. no, just because they're American, it's suddenly now innovative. No, you're just doing gambling without even called gambling. You know, is are companies having to push the boundaries to survive, or is that just being greedy? Can you be innovative within the rules and still be successful in today's climate?
It's legal innovation. It's finding innovative ways to find loopholes in the current legislation. And to that regard, you have to say sweepstakes and prediction markets are very innovative. But they've been invented or innovated by lawyers, not technology companies, not gaming operators. And so, yeah, that's the kind of innovation that's, the new legislations or increased taxes are forcing companies to try to operate, make their products accessible where legislation has either limited supply or banned it or prohibited it altogether. And I also want to refer to your earlier points about, taxes causing consolidation. I think that is by design. I think most regulators would prefer an environment where the markets consolidate towards 2 to 3 responsible, in quotes, operators. It's easier to regulate. It's easier to impose a set of rules and processes when it's only 2 or 3 large operators that dominate the market. And I think that's where Netherlands has steered towards, and that's where UK has been going for the past 10 years since the first increase in taxes. Market has started consolidating, and these portfolio companies are getting more and more market share. Now it's going to push the market more towards 2 to 3 large operators that dominate the market. And unfortunately, it will not be possible for an innovative startup to come in, have enough of a strategic edge to gain market share when the barrier to entry is going to be so strong.
Yeah, and I think that's a point. We've seen it in our data, consolidation of market share. But at the same time, with aggregators like yourselves, it is easier now to get the same content or similar content as the big operators. You don't have to integrate every supplier. So in a way, is it maybe too easy? And that's why all the illegal sites are finding it. And can you get an edge on products when it's now become so easy for everyone to get products through the likes of yourselves?
I would say that the most important is get the foundation done. And the foundation is the pipes, the APIs. First, you need to have robust and solid APIs because new game providers don't have solid and robust APIs. So as an aggregator, as you are in between the operator and the new game studio, specifically talking about new game studios, I'm not talking about pragmatic play and go. We've learned about APIs from them and from their mistakes. And we've seen their mistakes. And I don't say we would have done better back in time because we didn't know neither, but now we know thanks to them, okay? And they're squared, let's say. So some of them still have a legacy code, but they're squared. The new game providers, they don't have a lot of resources, and what they do, they concentrate all the resources on having doing great games. In terms of APIs, they're not there. The problem is that in any product, that wouldn't be a major issue. On Spotify, you get the wrong song, it's fine. On a gaming API, games are at the core of our operations and they're ruled by APIs. What does that mean? That if you can put a bet but don't retrieve the money from the wallet and get the win and retrieve the money to your wallet, you're printing money. You're printing cash. And your fraud and finance team may not see that. And I've seen operation bleeding around 2 million per month during a 1.5 year before they found out. Okay? And some of them never find out. So that would be, before price, the major differentiator, because 1% difference on a software provider won't make that much difference that if you have robust API. The second thing is building meta games that are agnostic to studios. Each studios, let's say, have the jackpots. And you want to educate the player as an operator. And how can you educate them? Octoplay is the best jackpot out there, okay? I want to be clear about that. But how are I going to educate them about Octoplays jackpots, and then about Playing Go jackpot, and about EGT jackpots, etc.? It's just not possible. You need to have an experience that is agnostic and that is specific to your casino. That also your casino doesn't have the same jackpot experience than another casino. So you want to build agnostic meta games. And when I say meta games, I take jackpot as the first step to other type of game. It can be another little thing, which it would be a double or nothing that you would have on all the games. And then it could be features that will be more like syndicate play, where people play together in teams, or people play against each other like in the tournaments, or people play together in teams against other teams or leagues. And then you start building something that's much more powerful. That's what an aggregator can do more than any other third party, because it's not just that we see the data, and it's that the data goes through us, and we can alter that data. We can add wins if needed. Of course, in a regulated environment with a jackpot that's either RNG. So we need to be careful about that, because yes, we can alter data being in the middle. But the beauty of an aggregator is that we can build meta games on top and give the tool to the operator to set up their own rules. Like, for example, a contribution for a jackpot normally is 0.5% before bets, which means that the player is betting 95 cents when he's betting €1, because 5 cents is removed and goes to the jackpots. Here you can decide maybe it's going to be 0.5%, there's going to be 1%, or me as an operator, I'm going to participate for a level of 10% for my small segment of player, and maybe up to 50% for my VIPs. So there's so many things that can be done with what I would call platform jackpot or platform third-party gamification tools.
And Sam, so you talked about moving into Nigeria.
We're in Nigeria.
We're in Nigeria now. And I suppose that has its own, issues with bandwidth and the different kind of mobile technology they have. Like, are you having to create different content for that market that you don't have those same issues in Latin America or Europe?
Not anymore. I don't think, lack of internet or lack of speedy internet or high-end devices is an issue in the market anymore. The market is primarily mobile now and in modern handsets, and Chrome is the most popular browser, and people are downloading apps from Play Store. So those limitations have been mostly overcome. In fact, it has a more modern, payment environment with mobile wallets on everybody's phones. So those are not the difficulties, the challenges of the market, but it has many other challenges that do not exist. Still, there's a lot of land-based retail mindset, a lot of agents, a lot of cash, business that goes through the agents. Betting behaviors are very different. Casino gaming didn't really exist. I mean, there's virtual sports, which was kind of the casino in Nigeria now through crash games. That's all it is. Like 90% of iGaming is crash games in Nigeria. So it's got its own challenges. Your brand's investment has to be much higher as a proportion of your marketing investment in the market. Whereas in UK, it's only a third. Maybe you can do performance marketing for 2/3. So like in every other market, it has its own challenging. I'd say it's the most challenging market I've ever been to in the 30 years that I've been operating. And we haven't really gained much traction there, but that's more because we haven't really deployed much capital there. We're very happy with our growth in the UK, but that's changing now. So what we're looking to do is redeploy capital from UK to Nigeria and probably send a thank you note to the UK legislator saying this is what happens when you overtax an environment. Capital is mobile, it moves to other countries, and it creates employment and economic benefit. Sorry if I digress, but I had to make that point.
And Henk, so you disagreed a bit that smaller, my view, or potentially some view, is that in some of these markets, it's too difficult as a small operator. I mean, I think Brazil so many operators are going to have to leave because the marketing money is just nuts. Yeah. And so I assume a lot of the casinos may be in trouble, are kind of smaller ones. Do you see the same issues? Is it just a playbook of like, okay, yeah, but everyone is doing this wrong, like, or the kind of different issues people are doing?
Right. So it depends on the market that they're in. So we recently acquired our Nigerian license as well, literally this week. So that's quite cool. Yeah. So we're going into that market as well. And we're aware of the issues that the operators had there. So we looked at the game loading time. So that was one of the biggest issues for our clients in Nigeria, that the loading time of these games were over 15 seconds. So we looked at games that was smaller of size, that could load faster on their devices. But if you look at failing operators such as the Netherlands, or such as in with the Curaçao license, the MJA or the Anjouan one, they all focus on the acquisition base a lot, but they forget something really important, that is retention. So what we see is that they don't really have a retention strategy in place. They just have an acquisition channel, and they don't have a lot of acquisition channels. They only use affiliates. So whenever an update comes from Google, which happens every quarter, the algorithm changes and their acquisition base, their acquisition channels have been drained. So now they don't have new players coming in. The old players, they don't play anymore because they're not been retained. They've not been paid attention to, and they have no VIP program in place, no loyalty system. So the customer support, even most of these websites don't even have a live chat, which nowadays it's one of the most important things a casino can have. So we look at those kind of things, and even with a live chat, so this is a very specific one. If a customer comes into the live chat, we already look at who is this person in the chat before they're even talking to the chat bot. Because if you're talking to a VIP, you're going to give him a different treatment than a regular player. So if a VIP comes in and he's asking or complaining about, I didn't win this week, we're going to give him something else than a player that just does a tenner a week. So those are things that we see that are very common in a lot of these operations.
Alex, you talked about data. I mean, I would love to get my hands on the amount of data that you must have on the LATAM markets. Yeah, who be three? But there's limited official data out there. You know, Peru provides some now on the legal market, but I mean Mexico. Fortunately, Caliente, we get some of their data. You know, Playtech put in their annual report, and you try and extrapolate. Chile, was an emergency measure to pass the legislation, and then it sits there for a year and a half with nothing happening. And then Argentina, where that's just provincial. Are there areas that you are excited about in LATAM still?
Argentina is a big market. But we don't see regulated opportunities, real opportunities right now there. But we know it's a huge market. We know from our suppliers, some of our suppliers that are taking this market even non-regulated. It's maybe not as big as Brazil, but it's an extremely huge market. It's also a market where you have what they call their truchos, which means fake games. Game Check, which is a company that has been set up by a friend of mine, James Elliott, is very active there because basically what they do, they check if operators have real games or paid games. And Argentina is one of the main markets where they see paid games. They see fake pragmatic games, evolution, no, because it's much harder to fake. On the other side, sometimes when we analyze the situation, or could I say that we are asking ourselves how fake these games are. How it's not a situation we've seen before. Maybe I can say it with Novomatic in Russia, let's say 10 years ago, when they would at least allow fake games, and I say at least because we never knew who were behind these fake games, to prepare the markets when the market will be regulated. they don't care that these fake games are taking the money because they can't take it. But at least they prepare the customers for them to come later, and then they would move them away. If in worst case scenario they wouldn't be behind this fake game company, but I can't claim, of course. We see a similar situation in Argentina where we have the feeling that some I'm being very careful with my wording that some game studios are at least allowing or closing their eyes on these fake game companies because they're preparing the market for them. If again they're not behind these companies, which we don't know. We investigate. I'm asking people from GameCheck. We want to believe that these companies are stealing the code and that's IP infringements more than something else. But we see that because the numbers are huge. So if I would love to see a market going regulated tomorrow in LATAM, it would be Argentina.
Well, mind if I ask a follow-up question to that?
Go for it.
With the regulators pressuring vendors and B2B suppliers in countries like UK and Netherlands, do you see this happening as well, where some content providers will decide not to service unregulated territories, but there'll be some backdoor actions, whether implicit or not, that their content will still show up in offshore operators through what you define as fake games?
I mean, if you want an unfiltered answer, yes, completely, and it's happening everywhere on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the default mode, and then they stop doing it. I mean, let's not lie. I mean, all our industry, let's call it a pre-regulated industry. What does that mean? It's like alcohol and tobacco. Let's talk alcohol, the liquor industry. It's the companies that were there before the regulation, that when the regulator decide to regulate, these companies are talking, I invited to the regulator's table, the one that were there. We always think, because that's what the regulator is selling us, be careful. If you enter the market before it's regulated, you're not going to be able to sit at the table and get your license. This is bullshit. We've seen it all the time. The first companies, and we've seen the big companies, I mean, Betson and all of the big one of this world were doing free regulated market before they became regulated per definition, and then they were the first one to sit to the table of the with the regulator, and they were the first one to get their licenses, okay? Apart some specific cases where they went too far, like in Holland.
Some of them even waited after regulation, continued operating at .com.
Also,
were invited later, like Bet365 in Italy.
yes.
And then overnight they got 30% market share.
Or they do both. In Greece, they have a license on one side where they don't make any money. They go unlicensed on the other side where they make money. And then they cross-sell from this side to this side. Then they close this side. And they cross-sell from the dark to the white. So first from the white to the black, and then
With no enforcement.
it's the common rule. But I would say that then sometimes the backlash happens, and we see backlash happening in UK on one side, but then the interest becomes even higher because UK is raising the tax at 40%. So now when you had, 100 operators that want to come in, now we have 500 that want to come in. And at the same time, UK is showing more their teeth, but at the same time, they're making the market more attractive to unregulated operator. And on the other side, you see what's happening in the US, where most of the market is unregulated. So it's like there's two forces that are colliding, but from what I'm seeing I've been 20 years in this industry, it seems that we're going darker and darker. And it's not that we're going darker and darker because we want to go darker and darker. It's really the regulator is pushing us there and pushing the players there. Just to finish, because I don't want to take all the audience time, but what do we see when the market gets regulated? We see that, first of all, the GGR, the monthly GGR you were making on this market is shrinking by, let's say, 50% on a day from another. We've seen it in UK. We had a UK lights operation. Bet365 also at the same number. When we put AML4 and affordability check from one day to another, we all lost 50%. Okay, and then more and more rules and 25%, and after 2 or 3 years, you just stop 20% of what you had before. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then the second thing, when you have something like GameStop, where a player pushed the button and cannot play anymore in any regulated casino for life because he pushed the button, it's for life. What are you doing when you could have set up like that? The player is still a player. He didn't change and not become a player from the day another just because he pushed a button. So what is he going to do? He's going to play on non-regulated casinos. I mean, it's obvious. So we see regulators that are behaving like creating a space, an environment that they idealize and they believe will work, but which is going completely against reality. And then we, as an industry, well, we try to go between the cracks. That's what's happening.
I think it's fair to say that in some ways the industry is getting darker again. Now, assuming you don't want to go that way, maybe some final thoughts, Sam, trying to answer something, on this. How long can we keep pulling the rabbit out of the hats? Okay. What do you see having to change, apart from regulation, because regulation is going one way, for operators? Do you think there's still more that you guys can do to fight this ever-growing storm against you? Or is it a case of just looking out and finding the best markets there are at the moment and just being in there for as long as you can until they turn to crap?
It's a mix of both. I don't think it's a fight. It's just adapting to a new environment. The new taxes didn't make our industry unprofitable. It made it less profitable, and it made it maybe unprofitable if you are not at a certain scale, so you can't cover your indirect costs. So yes, it's a major setback, but we think we have a little bit of a unique business model. We have a media business, and we have a direct acquisition funnel through LiveScore. So it's adapting to the new taxes, seeing if we can still continue to operate profitably. But like you said, other opportunities that were not as attractive to us before have now become more attractive. So we're very happy, deploying our capital mostly in the UK. We're very happy with predictable returns, but now those returns have diminished. So other opportunities that we've looked into, ones we're having licenses already in Nigeria, South Africa. But when you look at Canada, it looks much better now as opposed to, 3 months ago. And this is what, how capital behaves, right? Like if interest rates go up in a certain segment of the market, people start buying bonds. If they go down, they go and they invest in stocks, and growth capital comes in.
And but on that, so you do, as you say, have quite a unique positioning with your brands and the business model. Is the UK potentially opportunity for you as well as other operators get hit worse?
I mean, I wouldn't call it a desirable opportunity, but yes, a certain segment of the market may have to exit. But I think more importantly, the larger operators are very diversified. So the Flutters and Tains of this world, they can invest in Georgia, they can invest in Latin, they invest massively in the US. So they have other opportunities to deploy their capital. So they're going to invest less in marketing in the UK because their return on marketing is going to be higher relatively in other markets. So what's going to happen is if I have 3% market share right now, if I want to maintain a share of voice in marketing of 3%, which is really critical to maintain your market share, if I want to increase it to maybe 5%, it's going to be cheaper for me to do that. So will that all offset, the higher taxes? I think it would if we didn't have the black market. Now that's for me unpredictable. How much of the market, the addressable market, is going to move to the black market? How much is that market going to shrink? And if it shrinks too much, that's going to offset all these new opportunities and advantages that the increased taxes have created.
And then, Henk, not wanting to take away your business and give all your advice for free, but what kind of, if you can boil it down to one or two things, you talked about retention, but what else can operators do to try and maybe get ahead in markets?
Right. So what I think is very important right now is building an actual brand, and we see that coming more and more often. If you build a good brand, that in itself can be a really good retention system. So what I highly suggest, and what you said as well, the share of the market, just by having your brand out there, is going to be really important within the next few years. What I also truly hope, and what you were discussing as well, is that I truly hope is that the regulators will talk more often, not just with the operators that are in the regulator market, but with consultants, with aggregators, with PSPs, but how this market is moving and the choices that they want to implement are going to affect and how it's going to affect the market. Because I know H2 has been advising the Dutch regulator as well, but the Dutch regulator is just handcuffed by the Dutch government. And even though the Dutch regulator didn't want the increases of the tax, the Dutch government did. So I truly hope that we can get some innovation there and that they just talk with us, because I think that is so required in a market that we're in. And to talk about the operators, what I truly believe in is it's still one of the oldest marketing things that we can do, but it's email marketing. It's so effective. It is, and personalization within this as well.
I mean, people have been telling me about personalization for 20 years, and we're still not sure if maybe AI they'll actually get there. But no, I think with the Dutch regulators, a point that often I can be critical of regulators as other people can, but it's not always the regulators. Sometimes the regulators make decisions that you disagree with. Sometimes they don't make any decision. They just have to enforce it, and they're in a tough spot, like in the Netherlands. Yeah. Alex, can I have a final word from you before we get kicked off by Robin? You see stuff that I would love to see in terms of data and kind of wider aspects of markets. So, what do you think it gives? Let's say you have 2 or 3 operators operating in the same markets, getting all the same games through you. What's giving one of them an edge over the other one? Is it more than just who's spending the most marketing?
I mean, to get back a little bit to what I said before, well, I forgot to say about something. If you see an operator, let's say UK, you see an operator that's in UK that was making like 15, 20 million GGR, is going to 5 million GGR, was making 20% margin, is going more to 5% margin. I remember talking to an operator, it was a sweepstake operator, I'm not going to name him, about a real money gaming operator. They say, we're making around 50 million GGR per month. I say, no, you are mistaken. You make more around 5 million GGR per month. He said, no, 50 million GGR per month. We just acquired them. I know what I'm talking about. And I say, I'm sorry, you must tell you you're wrong. I don't see how you can make 50 million GGR per month in UK. After 1 hour conversation, it's like, oh shit, I made a mistake. It's yearly. Like, and your margin is around 5%. Yes. It's like laws of physics. When you know the business, when you know the market, you know basically what you can get out of it. I don't know any operator, to answer your question, that is on the main European regulated markets that are profitable. These are crowns they have on jewels that they have on the crown, and that they look beautiful. All right? So they make 5 million GGR per market, 5% margin. They're barely profitable. Okay, a lot of their resources, which is product or tech resources, are going into developing QYC or due diligence apps or reality checks or whatever. Right, but they have that, and that has a nice EBITDA multiplier. I mean, the EBITDA is tiny, but the multiplier is bigger. It's good for selling, all right? It's good for valuation. It doesn't bring any money, it doesn't bring any cash. And actually, they need cash from elsewhere to feed that, okay? So the strategy, as I see it, is they have these markets. It looks nice on the brochure, or on the paper. It looks nice if they are stock listed, but where they're making the money is on emerging markets. Now, let's put a big bag and call emerging markets whatever it is. All right, let's not get into detail. Is it pre-regulated? Is it gray? Is it white? Is whatever shade of gray is it? But that's where they make the money. That's where they take the cash, put it in the pockets, and also feed the regulated operations. That's what we see. And basically, they're running into these new markets that they know in 5 or 10 years are going to become the same one where they are in the old world. All right? So when we talk about Africa, of course I want to go to Africa. Because Africa is Sweden 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I want to go to LATAM because LATAM is what Europe was 5 years ago. Let's change it rapidly. We've seen it with Brazil. Brazil did like a quantum jump in 2 years, like that, between all friendly, freshly new markets for iGaming into something that became very strict very quickly. Okay, so they shrinked this timeline. And basically, what we see that iGaming companies are trying to do is find this new market and say, okay, we got between 5 and 10 years in front of us. And then we're going to find another one, then we're going to find another one, and we carry back the old one that'll look good, that when we're going to sell, it's going to make the valuation, but we're going to fuel that with the new markets where we're going in. That's the strategy of every gaming company that I know. I mean, most of them. All right?
Okay. So, old school regulated markets for show, emerging markets for dough. That's great.
That's very well said.
Right, well, thank you guys for all your time. I think we probably run over, but no, that sounds like an iGB problem. And great to speak with you.
Thank you for having us.